Greetings, everyone, and welcome to this Tantra Talks podcast. I'm your host, James Gopala. And the intention of the podcast is to delve deeper into this world of Tantra, a term that is often misunderstood. So it's my intention to invite different practitioners of Tantra onto the show so we can develop a greater clarity and understanding of this term. So if you are watching on YouTube, please do subscribe to the Gopala Yoga channel, as it really helps the channel, and you'll receive more content like this. So today I am very honored to welcome Shakti Sundari to the show. How are you doing, Shakti?
Thank you. Well, we were just talking before we went live. I'm brilliant, I'm present, and I'm also alive and navigating life at the moment as well. So there's all sorts going on, but I feel really present with you right now. So thank you for inviting me.
Very, very welcome. It's great to have you on. So Shakti is, I'll just introduce Shakti, is a priestess of love and sacred sexuality who has followed her bliss in teaching embodied awareness and awakening for women for the past 18 years. Trained as a yogi, tantrika, dancer and healer, Shakti is a passionate advocate of women's empowerment, masterful curator of full-bodied spirituality, and an eternal student on the path of authentic living. So Shakti runs the Awakening what is the term of the name of the goddess workshop that you do, Shakti?
The program is called the Awakening Shakti program. It's a 9-month course for women. Yeah.
Fantastic. Awesome. Yeah. So you're very much committed to women's spirituality, women's healing, embodying the divine feminine. And so how has this last year and start of 2021 been for you in terms of this crazy time that we're in right now?
Oh, well, how do I want to answer that? I guess this whole phase of shift and change and chaos and unexpectedness right from the start, for me has been mostly an experience of a dropping deeper into the peace and the stillness and the joy and the love that's already always there, right? That's sort of been, for the most part, my experience of it. However, of course, there have also been moments of stuff coming up to be processed personally and collectively. So, I'm no different to anyone else. And as I was just saying to you before we came live, I didn't kind of go into the whole thing, but actually something just come up for me in terms of, and it is triggered by the actual situation, this sense of overwhelm of needing to caretake my kids and my life and my clients and everything. And it suddenly, for a few days felt, it's just all too much. And I needed to take space. So, I've actually been processing and navigating that for the last couple of days. It's like, I allowed my boundaries. I wasn't holding my boundaries, which is part of self-care, which is what I teach the ladies in my program, and I wasn't doing it for myself.
Give. I mean, giving yes. From an empty cup, right?
Yes, over giving, and then I just felt utterly depleted. And I was like, okay, I need to go back and just, be with this. So I've been being with that, and it's been great because, and this is the process. This for me is Tantra, right? It's like stuff comes up, we be with it, and then the deeper we be with it, the deeper we get to the kind of the root of whatever the feeling or the sensation or the thought is, without sort of going into some great big story about it. And that's the healing, that's the integration, that's the next level of coming back to oneness, which for me, Tantra is about the return to self, the return to love, the return to unity, the return to that sort of embodied experience of being one with life. And, things take us out and then we come back in.
Do you feel that this last year, the whole COVID situation, on a larger scale and the bigger picture, has given people the opportunity to do this in more depth, that in a sense it has caused us to stop, to reflect, to self-heal and to awaken to a deeper sense of self. Do you feel that this period of time that we're in is assisting this greater awakening, would you say?
For sure.
Mm.
Yeah, for sure. It's like
Yeah.
it's now saying you've
Deal
got
with
no
it.
choice.
Yeah.
You've got no choice.
Mm.
Really. And so it's a huge, you know, for the most part, like I was saying, I see this as a huge, wonderful opportunity, even though the external reality is, you know, can appear frightening or confronting or challenging, like in real ways. So I don't want to bypass that, you know, in real ways. Yes. But absolutely, it's kind of like the it's being forced, and I sort of feel this pressure of you can't avoid it any longer. You can't avoid it any longer is getting stronger and stronger and stronger, and will continue to. Is my sense. And so if we don't have that inner connection to something beyond the external reality, it will, I imagine, begin to feel more and more difficult.
Yeah, I think Corey Good calls it the end time madness that we're experiencing, and the energies, cosmic energies, the energy from the sun, the galactic center, it's all increasing to such a degree that we are being forced to deal with our shadow, and it's a sink or swim kind of thing. You know, we can either be overwhelmed by it and be overburdened by it and just be stuck in that 3D fear, anxiety, paranoia realm, or as a lot of us are doing, are being forced and pushed to deal with shadow, and also being forced to step up, pushed to step up, do things like this, you know, this, go online, do podcasts, Facebook lives, really step up into personal power and authenticity and truth. And so, yeah, it from, you know, whether it be living situations or relationships or work environments or issues with money, or, you know, to do with social media and stepping up on a larger scale, it just seemed that this last year has really pushed people into potentially uncomfortable places where they've really had to step up and step into more into their authenticity and their truth and their power.
Yeah.
So we talk about the importance of a spiritual path, especially during this time where it is challenging and we are faced with shadow, and we have, you know, can get overwhelmed by the concerns about what's going on the external. And obviously the name of the podcast is Tantra Talks, and so Tantra is recognized as a spiritual path. So how do you understand Tantra? What does Tantra mean for you?
I guess, yeah, it's meant different things based on where I'm at. So I've understood it based on what my level of consciousness is, and that's changed. So to put it really simply, when I first went towards, I did feel this calling towards Tantra, didn't really know what it was. It was primarily because I loved sex and I wanted better sex. I also had a deep spiritual longing, and I kept fucking up in my relationships. So those were the three motivations that sort of called me to it. And my experience of Tantra has been primarily in Western Neo-Tantra, right? So just to give that framework as well. And as I've kind of explored and delved and read and practiced and exposed myself to as many teachers as I can, I guess my understanding has shifted from this like outward longing, yearning, searching, to like coming closer and closer, back in. And so now I guess my how I would express it to somebody is Tantra is a way of life, as well as a series of practices which are about meeting the self. That's as simple as I can put it. It's like the process, the practice, the living recognition that God and me are one.
Nice, beautiful. It's that approach to life, if you like, and God and you and God and the individual are one, and everything is also an expression of God. So everything that we do day to day washing the dishes, brushing the teeth, or praying and meditation, doing your yoga. It's all sacred and all an expression of divinity and movement, if you like. If everything is divine, then we can use, each moment and each activity of the day, even just more mundane day-to-day chores, to really go into that place of presence and awareness and integration, and not, I think all spiritual paths are leading us out of the mind into the heart, right? And we're moving, through the body, through activity. We're moving out of our programs and fears and projections and memories and anxieties into that place of being and presence. And yeah, I love how you describe that, and that it's ever evolving in that respect. So the way we understand, as our spirituality evolves, so our understanding of self and God and our relationship between the two evolves. And a big part of Tantra is working with polarity, working with the divine masculine, which we generally understand as Shiva, though that's just one word. It's just a word. It doesn't really necessarily represent divine masculinity in its entirety. And also obviously the divine feminine, Shakti, which is power and energy and love and movement. Now, the work that you do with women, you're encouraging women to embody this divine Shakti, the divine feminine. What do you find is the biggest obstacle for women to embody their divinity, or their divine feminine, or just divinity in general?
Oh, gosh. There are so many.
I was thinking of this question, but for the men's position, I was like, oh, where to start?
God. Right. Okay, let's see what comes out of my mouth. Well, the thing is, I think a lot of what I'm going to say will apply to men and women, but also, yes, I focus on working with women primarily now. So the first thing I'm going to say, though, is really from the moment that we're born, and actually you could even say from the moment we're conceived, there, as I see it anyway, there's such a strong conditioning to deny our divinity, both men and women, that applies to. And it's like this conditioned forgetting. So that's the first part, which applies to everyone equally, I think. And so for me, my path has been about the remembering. And like, oh, I didn't realize I'm already perfect. I'm already whole. I'm already love. I just forgot. I didn't realize. And then I see all the structures and systems that have been in place for so long that are part of the conditioned forgetting. And then for women in particular, yeah, of course, there are different experiences if you're in a woman's body or a man's body. I have to use the word patriarchy just because it summarizes things more quickly than kind of having to explain stuff. But there's structures in place that have privileged, and again, this affects men and women equally. They've privileged a particular narrative or conditioning that is so deeply ingrained that we think that's normal. We think it's normal. I'm writing about it at the moment. My experience as a girl, for example, just to kind of make it more concrete, was that it was normal to be objectified. For men to have the power and the privilege to pass comment on my physical appearance. And so therefore I objectified myself, not realizing, because it wasn't shown, that actually this body is sovereign, that this body has integrity, that I can vocalize what's okay and what's not okay. So that this is just one very simple example. It's like the reclaiming of the recognition that actually I am sovereign. Even that is a massive thing, because the conditioning is so strong for women to not recognize the power and the locus of power and the locus of sexuality is here, not it's not to please another, it's not to attract another, even it's not here to manipulate another, because what's happened is there's so much distortion, that an imbalance of power, that then sexuality for women is very wrapped up in power and control, but in a very shadowy way. Giving self permission is another huge thing for many of the women that I work with. Having permission, just this feeling like I need permission from somebody to be myself. I need permission from somebody to be sexual. I need permission from somebody to say no. People pleasing, you know, having to make nice, to be good, to be kind all the time, to smile all the time, to be pretty all the time, you know, that kind of bullshit, not which is like such a burden. It's such a burden to not be real. And to sort of push away, therefore, all the shadow aspects, which are just as powerful and just as important. And recognizing that sort of embodying the divine feminine isn't about looking a particular way. It's not about being nice all the time. In fact, quite the opposite. You know, most of us have to learn to embrace our fierceness, and our shadow, and our no, and our anger, all of those things, you know.
Fully integration of all those different aspects. And again, if we look at the divine feminine in the Hindu tradition, you have the different faces of Shakti. You have a Lakshmi, a very loving, kind, sweet, endearing mother kind of energy. But then you have Kali, who's just raw power and is terrifying, and will just, you know, chopping heads off and grabbing people, you know, pulling people to enlightenment, and you know, chopping the heads off the ego, and connecting to that raw power. And I see that those different aspects are all valid, that it's not just one archetype, that, you know, women are this nice, sweet, you know, looking pretty, just having no sort of personal opinion, or just, you know, it's that old school understanding of you know, women, and embracing all those different aspects, embracing the Kali energy, the Durga energy, Saraswati, intelligence, and developing the intellect and learning and growth, but also obviously that Lakshmi side, that nurturing side. So that's beautiful how you're looking to integrate it all. And I know that recently you've done interview series with men as well, and you've been looking at the importance of the divine masculine and the importance for women to embody the divine masculine. Now that's really interesting, because, you know, we can get so caught up, okay, if you are female or you identify as female, then you're just going to embody the divine feminine, not recognizing that, of course, we are both masculine and feminine. We have like the Ardha and Arishvara image of half male. Yes, exactly. And that the you know, the image of lovemaking, or half male, half female God, is, you know, and always in the Hindu tradition, you always have a male and female. You'll have the consort, and it's all representing that union, not just externally through sacred partnership, but also primarily that union within, that we have both masculine energy, we have both, and feminine energy. We have the Ida and Pingala energy that we talk about in yoga, and the different nervous systems, parasympathetic, sympathetic, action and rest. So tell us a little bit more about the importance of what you learned from that interview series. It's really interesting that you went into that, and what you learned and discovered, and how you've managed to apply that personally.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about that. So again, I get really excited about this topic, actually. Get really excited because, you know, the personal is so relevant to everything, and I always bring in my own stories as well to illustrate the journey. So again, remember when I was doing this, I started this path like looking outside. Where's the man? I want a man. I want a lover. I want divine union. I want sacred union. I want, you know, I want, right? And then this recognition of having to come back and back. And it's like, he's here. He's not out there. He's here. What's in here is going to be reflected out there. What's in here is going to be reflected out there. And, you know, I want to be really, really clear. And again, this is for men and women. When we talk about embracing these qualities of the opposite polarity, it's not that if you embrace your masculine, you're going to become more masculine. Quite the opposite, actually. And the journey is the same for men. There's a need I see to embrace the feminine. It doesn't mean you're going to become more wishy-washy or weak. Quite the opposite. And the more we embrace and connect with that inner opposite polarity, actually, the deeper and stronger and more grounded we become in our essence. And the more there's the potential actually for the sacred partnership on the external that you're talking about. So for me, and again, I'm going to talk really personally, that there was so much wounding around the masculine. And this is pretty common for so many women that I've worked with. You know, just through being in a patriarchal system and experiencing a lot of abuse and experiencing, you know, all kinds of denigrating practices and thoughts and beliefs that we take them in and they become us. But also very personally as well, me and my dad was like the personification of patriarchy, dominating, controlling, a little bit violent, aggressive, like all those qualities. So that shaped me, and the wounding was so strong that was why, you know, I was propelled onto this path, really. And as I've gone through and lived out my shadow, and, you know, experienced a lot of pain, a lot of hurt. I'm not going to deny that, like some really huge pain, some really huge suffering. However, that kept on propelling me to heal deeper, to heal deeper, to heal deeper. Getting to the point where the recognition was so clear that what is out there is in here. What is out, you know, just I have to keep repeating that. And I know I used to deny that. And so I understand when the feeling comes up, oh, that's not true. That's not true in this case. It's not, but it is true. And again, I want to be like, I feel so passionately. I had to go into the experience of being in an abusive relationship for me to finally wake up fully out of that. I want to say fully, actually, I'm catching myself, because actually there's always other levels. There's always deeper levels of healing. It never stops. But that was just like that was the Kali slap in the face that I got. And it was like, no more looking outside. Go right in here and do the work. And so I see personally in my own life the reflection of that now in the quality of friendships I have with conscious men, beautiful conscious men, in the quality of meeting I'm experiencing in a new and very recent, don't know what I would call it right now, let's call it sacred relating. And, you know, I see this with the women that I teach, and in the interview series, so this is part of the Awakening Shakti course that I teach. We spend a whole month immersing ourselves in engaging with and healing the relationship with our inner masculine, because your feminine can't blossom fully unless you have that deep anchoring here inside with the Shiva, with pure consciousness, with the stillness. That's the grounding, that's the anchoring, that's the holding, that's the answer to the yearning for completion. Every time you look outside yourself for it, you're going to be disappointed, because no human being on the external can give you what Shiva can give you internally. And it's not just about the consciousness, it is also about the sort of the lower level expressions of the unhealthy, immature masculine that we've embodied, because they're so much a part of the air that we breathe around us. Same for men. The work is to kind of heal and release the unhealthy, immature feminine aspects within you. And so that's the work. And as we do that, it's just so powerful, because you know, the results are manifest then outside us. And as I did this series of interviews, and if you want to see it, it's on my YouTube channel, and it's a playlist called Sacred Masculine Rising. And as I spoke to these series of men, so for one, I had this most beautiful experience of exchange. Literally, it was like a dance of Shakti and Shiva with each interview that I conducted. It was so profound and so healing and nurturing for me. But then as I shared these interviews with the women who follow me, they were so touched, they were so open, they were sobbing tears of healing, release. to hear a man speak the words that they'd long to hear, to see the embodiment of the divine masculine, you know, there, because they're kind of, there's a lot of belief in the conscious world that these men don't exist. And I don't want to say that to put some ideal of perfection or, you know, put these guys on a pedestal. We're all human, right? But yeah, so it was a really fulfilling, nurturing, expansive experience, and you know, one I want to keep on continue, because we have to re-educate. It's like if we keep focusing on what's shitty, we're going to keep getting more of what's shitty. So let's like look where the example is of what we aspire to. So we teach ourselves this. It's like, I want to hang out with these people because that's where I'm going, you know, rather than like focusing on what was, which is the patriarchal stuff. And this ties us back in. I know I'm talking a lot, sorry. I feel like I'm on the The stuff that's happening around us is directly connected. Because the embodiment of the masculine that we see leading is the stuff that's all dying away. So the more we do this inner work now of like healing, releasing, integrating, bringing ourselves together, all these disparate parts, the masculine and the feminine, that's the way to change it.
Awesome. Wow, you brought up some really important and profound points there. I think the first thing was that this yearning externally, you know, looking outside for that sense of completion, where, you know, we can never really satisfy that sense of lack from the external. That's people turn to drugs, people turn to relationships, food, social media, whatever it might be. It's that sense of I'm not good enough, or there's a lack of completeness within that's experienced on the existential level. And so we look externally, and that you recognize that looking externally for the partner, the man, to essentially help heal those father wounds, most likely, recognizing that was always just a band-aid, and that was that the journey, the real journey, is an internal journey, and starting to connect to the inner masculine, the divine masculine within, to that place of peace and consciousness within. And again, you referred to your father and childhood, and I feel that a lot of, you know, we are formed from childhood. You know, we are products of our upbringing and our parents and our conditioning, and essentially on one level we're looking to unplug and decondition and heal the trauma that's been put onto us from childhood. It's something I'd like to talk a little bit more about, but before you go to that, just for those who are quite new to these concepts of divine masculine, divine feminine, I mean, how would you define these two concepts and these energies? And what's your understanding of the divine feminine, divine masculine, and their relationship?
Yeah. That's a really good question. I guess I would put it on a couple of levels. So on one level, I understand and I experience my connection with and potential to embody transpersonal energies of what I experience as an essence of the divine feminine as Shakti, and an essence of the divine masculine as Shiva, or pure consciousness. So that's one level. And on another level, I guess I see it as sort of coming down into matter more, even though that, you know, I experience the potential to actually embody these energies literally. So we talked about Kali, for example. She moves through my body sometimes, other energies do. So this is a transpersonal energy. It's you know, it's beyond this personality. And then also, as I look out into the world and look at myself as well, you know, I'm a human being with a calling, a desire to continue on that path of merging my human and divine self with as much awareness as I can muster. So, you know, I will look at friends of mine, and male and female, and I'll say, oh, what a beautiful divine masculine. And I mean that as a term of honoring that person on their path and their journey of that integration that's happening for them.
What is the quality of divine masculine, of divine feminine? What do you mean when you say divine masculine, Shiva? You mentioned, I know you've touched on it, consciousness, connecting to self, the spirit. So when we're talking about these two terms, divine masculine, divine feminine, what do you mean by each of those individually?
Okay. So qualities of the divine feminine, I would refer to things such as embodiment, as in being able to fully feel and live in a really relaxed, at ease way with the physical body and every part of it. I would refer to sexual energy and sexuality and sensuality. I would refer to feelings and emotions. I would refer to the capacity to receive deeply and to sense deeply and to love deeply. I would refer to, the sexual energy, again, I just have to add an addendum to that, because so many people, as soon as you add the sexual part into the energy, people's heads can go off and then they're just thinking about sex as a physical act. So I just want to clarify, when I speak about that energy, then ultimately for me, it can be experienced as a sensation in the genitals, it can be experienced as lovemaking, but it's so much more than that. This is the immensely, infinitely creative power of life force. So that's how I mean that. And yes, we're designed for pleasure. Yes, we're designed actually for bliss and for ecstasy. In terms of divine masculine qualities, then I would talk about stillness, about truth, about clarity, about focus, structure, purpose, unwavering strength, presence. I'm just like, literally as I'm talking to you, I'm tapping into like both of those.
Beautiful. I love it. It's amazing. Perfect. That's awesome. Why is it important to balance the two, and what can that look like in an awakened being or an integrated being?
Well, you've got a picture on the back on your wall behind you.
Which one?
And I've got this.
Ardhaneshwara.
Yeah, I'm going to say it. Thank you.
half male, half female god. Shiva Shakti.
Yeah. So,
okay. I think in a modern world, we are, for those on the spiritual path, we're looking to, Tantra is all about kind of navigating through physicality, desire, pleasure, to integrate, to move through, and to ultimately transcend, not in an ascetic way to deny, but to integrate, to move through, and to move. It's like an involution or an evolution through these things. What do you think that integrated being, spiritual being, in the 21st century, it looks like now? I'm getting confused.
What is it?
Yeah, I know. Just like, I know it's a new year, but 21st century. Yeah. What does that look like? That what do you think we're here to do on planet Earth now, and how that can look as that expression of that integration, and ultimately the path that we're here on, and our purpose and mission, essentially.
Oh yes, thank you. Yeah, lovely. I'm gonna get passionate again. I can feel myself.
Go for passion. Let's get that Shakti moving.
So first thing I want to say is it doesn't necessarily look like someone who's like split down the middle and is like half and half.
Literally half male, half female.
Yeah, and it doesn't necessarily mean so. This is, and again, guys, this is just my understanding, right? Don't take what I'm saying, anything I'm saying, as the truth. This is just my own expression. Doesn't necessarily mean that I, as Shakti start behaving in a more masculine way either. In fact, okay, so here's how I see it. I see it as the more this integration is embodied within me, the more I express my true nature, the more I express my true self into the world. And we're all here, each and every one of us, nobody left out, to be that full self-expression of divine, right? Moving through us without all of these restrictions and conditionings and patterns and the doubts and the like fears and I shouldn't and I couldn't, you know, as we experience this unity, which for me, you know, I'm not there yet. It's an ongoing project. It comes and goes, it comes and goes. But when I'm in that moment of pure alignment and unification within myself, there's just love, there's just bliss, there's just unconscious self, as in, it might sound wrong, it'll come out the wrong way, but like there's no self-consciousness, there's no self-consciousness because the self disappeared. It's just life happening through this being in the most perfect self-expression of what she or he is here to do and be. And imagine a world where everyone is that. Imagine a world where that is how it is. Like, how beautiful. So it can be hard to actually imagine that literally at the moment because we don't see it, but we can feel it. And that's where it starts. It starts with the feeling inside, and it starts again coming back to the embodiment of it, which is the process that we're all doing. I know you're doing it, we're all doing it. We're on that process of integration. But just to imagine it, this is how I imagine it. I imagine it as a world of beauty. I imagine it as a world of love. I imagine it as a world of truth and transparent communication. I imagine it as a world of sacred relating and sacred partnership, and also sacred co-creation and the ongoing creation of a more awakened humanity. I imagine it as a world where we are living in a healthy relationship with nature and the environment and the creatures that walk this earth. And so beyond that, I think the potential is so huge and so beautiful. It's hard for the human mind to conceive it at the moment, but that's what I see ultimately.
Yes, beautiful. Yeah, heaven on earth.
Heaven on earth.
The new earth.
Yeah.
I agree with you completely. And that, you know, I'm an optimist. I do believe in evolution and spiritual evolution, collective evolution, and that is the direction that we are going in. And I do feel that this last year, the whole COVID situation is a major marker stone on that journey. I think we're still a little bit, you know, we've still got a bit to go there. Yeah. But I strongly believe that ultimately that we are destined for this type of society where we are more connected to spirit, we're embodied, and we're in our truth, in our true self, and not caught up by the fear and the hysteria and the anxiety that, and the old patriarchy, competition, domination, control that, you know, has kind of governed the planet for however many millennia. Yes, that I'm very confident that, you know, we are moving towards that place. And for me, a big part of that healing process is healing the past and looking at relationships with parents and how our relationships with mother and father influence every single other relationship with men and women on the planet. How we relate to these, you know, these more archetypal energies of the divine masculine, of the divine feminine, of the divine mother, of the divine father, how we relate to our partners and to our brothers and sisters and to our parents, to our children, to our friends. So in terms of some of the work that you're doing with women personally as well, do you go into that childhood time, and how would you work with that?
Yes, absolutely. Like you say, so much about how we relate and show up in the world is shaped by those formative years. And we can't really liberate ourselves without going into an exploration of that. and making the unconscious conscious and feeling what hasn't been felt, forgiving, integrating. I'm going to give you a personal example again, but also relate it back to, again, two things I want to say about this. Sex and sexuality. Quite a lot of people will come, as I did, to the path, sexual awakening for women. I want to be more sexy. I want to have better sex. I want to be more divine feminine, and it's like, great. And it's not all about sex, and it's not all about looking sexy. I'm going to ask you to go into your mother and father wound, because that is going to be a really big part of wherever you're holding, wherever you're contracted, wherever you can't open your heart, wherever there's numbness in your body. It will be related to that or other traumas or experiences you've had that have shut your capacity to feel, to sense, to love, to feel safe. So it's all related. I didn't realize I had to do shadow work to open more sexually and spiritually. Yes, you do. So, for example, with my father, I expressed how I'd experienced him growing up and what a big impact, a huge impact that had on me, to the point where I was in a relationship, as I said, that was abusive, that was mirroring how he had been to a large extent. And resentment, I held so much resentment towards him for a very long time. And I was, so two things, holding resentment and looking for completion through a man to give me the love that my dad hadn't, that I thought he hadn't. And that is the bottomless pit of wanting. So no man could match it.
Exactly. You always want more.
Yeah, always wanting more. And so then the most beautiful thing has happened through repeated cycles of doing healing and forgiving and healing and forgiving, repeated cycles. In this last year, for me and my dad, this massive shift has happened through, for me, another cycle of feeling the pain, because that's what has to happen. You have to be willing to feel the pain to its fullest, so it feels shitty for a bit. But I'm an expert at guiding people through that, because I've guided myself through so much of that.
For what you feel, you heal, as we say in yoga.
But it's true, without finger pointing, without blaming. Like, you did this, like, just feel it, just feel it, just feel it. I know it's horrible, but feel it. And forgiveness, but forgiveness never forced. Only when it's authentic, only when it's true, only when your heart actually says, oh my God, I recognize what I've been doing, I'm so sorry. It's only when you come to that place organically that it works.
Yeah.
Came to that place, and the thing with my dad, like, it had already been shifting incrementally over the years, but like this massive shift happened, like massive. And as clear as day, I could see how the energetic shift within me was reflected immediately in his interactions with me, like astoundingly. So this is, again, this is the work.
That's awesome. Now, did that shift with your father coincide with the interview series you're doing with the men?
Just trying to remember. I think there was a connection. I think there was a connection.
That's how it works.
And there was something else that I was doing. This might be interesting for people, because again, I like to keep it really real. I've been doing a course on abundant business, so how to work as a woman in business from a more feminine way. And this really showed me how I was operating in my business from a very masculine paradigm, even though I teach awakening Shakti. And it was like, lots of unconscious stuff here. So there was another healing process that I did as part of that also had a big impact.
Awesome. And it's all potentially most likely tied into healing with your father and an improvement of the relationship there, and maybe a release of some charge and polarity that you were holding on to. And forgiveness, at the end of the day, it's like everyone is just doing the best they can, and it's that, I think it all boils down to forgiveness. And I've had to go through my own process of of forgiving parents and accepting, but also having those healthy boundaries as well. But yeah, I completely agree that working to that true sense of forgiveness and can really help to shift the energy. Doing the external work, working with the masculine on an external level also helps to heal that inner energy, and then has the knock-on effects of the healing father-mother issues. So that's beautiful. Shakti, this has been really awesome. I don't think I did you justice at the start with my introduction, because you've been on TV, you're writing books, and you've done all sorts of things, haven't you? So just why don't you tell the audience a little bit about, just to close, what you have done and what 2021 holds for Shakti Sundari.
Oh, bless you. Oh, I guess I'm just going to say, nothing's pre-planned. It's just what comes out of my mouth, really. One of the things I've realized, because you know how you kind of step onto a path and then you just on it so much that you don't, well, I haven't really looked back. One of the things I've just been doing recently is looking back, and suddenly I see, I've been on this path for 18 years. Wow. And it's like, oh my God, and it's like, I remember that when I set out, I had these people who I really wanted to be like, and it was like, they were up there, and now I'm looking back and it's like, oh, somehow I'm embodying all the things I wanted to embody, and there's more. So there's something about the wisdom and the experience that I've had that I actually want to acknowledge. 18 years of spiritual practice, of embodiment practice, of meditation, of self exploration and healing, and it's always ongoing. There's a great humility that comes with that, and at the same time there is a power that comes with that, which again is increasingly, I recognize, nothing to do with me. Nothing to do with me.
In fact, it's an inverse relationship. The more you get rid of you, the more you're embodied in your divinity, in a sense.
That's it. So I want to acknowledge that. So for me at the moment, the focus is very much on surrendering, actually, and asking, like I was praying and meditating this morning, just saying, like, in this interview today, let me just be a channel. Whatever needs to come through, let it come through. I don't have to worry about it, right? And that's how my work is now, more increasingly. It's just, let me be a channel for the divine. Let what needs to come through, let it be. So practically, although I can get carried away just being in that space, actually, there's my Awakening Shakti 9-month program for women. It's a really deep mentorship program.
It's a long time, 9 months. It's
rebirth.
How frequently are you connecting on Zoom, I'm assuming?
Yeah, it's going to be starting soon. This next one, it's the 3rd year. It's, so, well, I don't want to go into the details of the program, but yeah, it's a deep container, because I realized that's the time that's needed. There's no such thing as like this instant shift. It needs time. It needs holding. It needs someone being willing to call you out and not bullshit. I wish somebody had called me out a lot longer on some of my stuff, to be honest with you. I really do. But being willing to call out in a loving way. So there's that, which is like the big thing that I'm just kind of stepping into the next level of. I think I'll leave it at that. There are other things, but yeah.
Beautiful. So if people want to get in contact with you, Shakti, what's the best way in terms of social media, YouTube, website?
I'm on YouTube, Shakti Sundari. I'm on Instagram, Shakti Sundari. Facebook, Shakti Sundari. I've got an Awakening Shakti Facebook group. So come in there, ladies. If you want to, I'm doing lives every day at the moment about the program. So come in and get those. And I've got a website, shaktisundari.com. So I've got all of those. Find me. You'll find me somewhere.
That's beautiful. Beautiful. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining me this morning, Shakti. It's been really awesome to connect. And I wish you the very best for 2021 and all your amazing endeavors. And yeah, maybe we'll meet again virtually or in person sometime in the future.
I hope so. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for watching, guys. So again, do subscribe and like and share with anyone who you feel may benefit from this. Thanks, everyone.